her about Michelle. Michelle?
Oh, God, what about her?
She went missing.
And have you guys tried calling her? I have no idea how to help you with that. I've actually been trying to look for her.
Since when?
Almost a week now, to tell her to stay away from my daughter.
On May 27, 2011, 26-year-old nursing student Michelle Lee stepped out of her Hayward, California classroom to grab something from her car and never returned. Within hours, worry turned to panic, but the clues didn't lead to a random attacker. They pointed to someone once considered family, Giselle Esteban, her former friend and roommate. Jealousy had twisted their bond into something toxic. Esteban was convinced Michelle had been involved with her ex, despite no evidence.
I asked you, can we just be honest about Michelle, because she's the one issue that I really am having a hard time dealing with.
That's not what you said at all.
Yes! Okay, well then fine. Starting from now, we are going to be honest about Michelle. Do you understand me? Okay. Whether you sleep with her, whether you share food with her, whether you talk to her, you will be honest with me. Look at me! You will be honest with me regarding her. Otherwise, I will take your life and hers. Mom. And you can take that to the grave with you.
That obsession escalated into stalking, threats, and, eventually, murder. This is the story of Michelle Lee, a bright student betrayed by someone she once called a sister, killed in cold blood over imagined betrayal. It was the start of Memorial Day weekend, Friday, May 27, 2011, when Michelle Lee, a student at Samuel Merritt University's nursing program, walked out of class during a break around 7 p.m. to retrieve materials from her car. Her classmates at Kaiser Permanente's Hayward Medical Campus expected her back within minutes. She never returned. At first, her absence caused mild confusion. Maybe she'd felt unwell, maybe she'd stepped out to take a call. But as the minutes stretched into hours, the concern deepened. Michelle wasn't the kind of person to disappear. She was disciplined, focused, and had dreams of saving lives. That night, her family reported her missing. By the next day, local police began treating her disappearance as suspicious. Her white Honda SUV was located less than a half-mile from the medical campus in a residential neighborhood. Inside, her personal items remained untouched. There was no sign of Michelle. What investigators did find, however, was unsettling: a significant amount of blood inside the vehicle. DNA tests would later confirm it was Michelle's. From the outset, this wasn't treated as a simple missing person case. Hayward police opened a homicide investigation almost immediately, citing the amount of blood loss as inconsistent with life. But the question loomed: who would want Michelle dead? As investigators dug into Michelle's life, one name came up repeatedly: Giselle Esteban. Once her close friend and even a former roommate, Esteban had become estranged. Friends and family described a growing tension between them, rooted in Giselle's belief that Michelle had been romantically involved with her ex-boyfriend and father of her child, Scott Marasigan. Michelle had denied the claim, and Scott himself stated there was no romantic involvement, but Giselle refused to believe it. This wasn't idle jealousy. Detectives would uncover a long pattern of harassment. Michelle had confided in friends that Giselle was stalking her, showing up at places uninvited, making threatening comments, and calling obsessively. One classmate reported that Michelle had grown visibly anxious in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Her trust had frayed. By early June, surveillance footage emerged from the Kaiser parking structure. In it, a woman resembling Esteban was seen lurking around Michelle's car around the time she vanished. Esteban, then pregnant with her second child, was brought in for questioning. She denied involvement, but her alibi was shaky.
I considered her my sister.
And then, what happened?
She made a mistake. Scott made a mistake.
And then, was that when you were with Scott, or had you guys broken up, or?
No, we were still together. They made the mistake twice.
Were you surprised to see Michelle there?
And her phone records placed her near the campus at the exact time Michelle disappeared. On June 4th, detectives executed a search warrant on Esteban's San Francisco apartment. What they found strengthened their suspicions. Michelle's name scribbled in journals, angry entries filled with hatred and resentment, even computer searches related to tracking someone without their knowledge. While there was still no body, the circumstantial case was building rapidly. Michelle Lee was still missing, but investigators had a prime suspect. A friendship turned bitter had spiraled into something darker, more violent. The search for justice and for Michelle was just beginning. As investigators peeled back the layers of Michelle Lee's disappearance, one thing became unmistakably clear. This was not a sudden act of rage. It was a calculated, premeditated move by someone who had allowed jealousy to rot into obsession. Giselle Esteban, once described as cheerful and sociable, had transformed. Over the course of several months before Michelle's disappearance, her behavior became increasingly erratic and volatile. In interviews with friends and coworkers, detectives learned that Esteban had been consumed by the belief that Michelle was trying to steal her ex-boyfriend, Scott Marasigan. Scott himself repeatedly told police that Michelle was not a threat, stating they were simply friends and that there had never been a romantic relationship between them. But Esteban was unmoved. To her, Michelle was the reason her relationship had failed, the reason she was raising her daughter alone, the reason her life felt unstable. Data pulled from Esteban's phone and computer painted a chilling picture. In the weeks before the disappearance, Esteban had Googled phrases like, "how to hide a body," "how long does DNA last," and "how to delete text messages permanently." Investigators also uncovered GPS data placing her near Michelle's school on multiple days prior to the incident, indicating she may have been casing the area and planning the attack. Further damning evidence emerged in the form of a secretly recorded conversation. Esteban had spoken with a mutual friend and, unaware she was being recorded, blamed Michelle for ruining her life and said she hoped Michelle would just disappear. She even predicted that nobody would believe she had anything to do with it because she was pregnant. Meanwhile, the physical evidence continued to mount. Forensic analysis of Michelle's car showed not just her blood, but traces of Esteban's DNA as well, on the steering wheel and driver's side door. Investigators concluded the attacker had likely waited for Michelle in or near the car, ambushed her, and then transported her body. Still, there was one thing missing: Michelle herself. Despite the mounting evidence, law enforcement couldn't bring a murder charge without a body, or so they thought. But the case was strong enough, the motive established, the digital and physical trail undeniable. The DA's office made a bold move. On September 7, 2011, Giselle Esteban was arrested and charged with the murder of Michelle Lee. She was held without bail. Her mugshot, swollen from pregnancy, contrasted sharply with the cold-blooded details prosecutors would lay out in court. As the story unfolded in headlines and TV reports, the public struggled to make sense of it. How could a mother, due to give birth within weeks, orchestrate the violent disappearance of someone who had once been a friend? And yet, this is what the evidence showed: a woman driven not by a single moment of madness, but by a festering obsession, built on a foundation of jealousy, insecurity, and a desperate need to assign blame. The case still lacked one crucial piece: the location of Michelle's body. Without it, conviction wouldn't be impossible, but it would be harder. Public interest intensified. Volunteers continued searching. The Lee family refused to accept uncertainty. They organized search parties across Alameda County, distributed flyers, and worked closely with Class Kids, a nonprofit dedicated to missing children and adults. Then, 4 months later, a break. On September 17, 2011, a group of volunteers discovered badly decomposed remains in a remote, brushy area between Pleasanton and Sunol, near a dirt road off I-680. Forensic testing confirmed the worst: the body belonged to Michelle Lee. Now prosecutors had everything they needed: motive, evidence, and the body. A mother, jealous and angry, had murdered her perceived rival in cold blood and tried to erase her from existence. The courtroom in Alameda County was quiet on the morning of September 17, 2012, almost exactly 1 year after Michelle Lee's remains were found. At the center of it all stood Giselle Esteban, now a mother of 2, her face unreadable. Charged with first-degree murder, she pled not guilty, despite the overwhelming body of evidence against her. But this trial wasn't just about facts. It was about intent. Was this a heat-of-the-moment altercation, or had Esteban meticulously plotted Michelle's death? Prosecutors argued the latter, and they came prepared. The district attorney began by establishing a timeline of premeditation. In the months leading to Michelle's death, Esteban had stalked her online, made multiple visits to her school, and searched how to get away with murder-style topics. Security footage from the Kaiser Permanente garage where Michelle was last seen placed Esteban at the scene. Michelle's blood was found in her car, in amounts indicating fatal injury, alongside Esteban's DNA. Cell tower data proved Esteban's phone had traveled to the remote area where Michelle's body would later be found. The DA showed jurors text messages, recorded phone calls, and GPS logs that formed a digital roadmap of obsession. The centerpiece, a damning audio recording where Esteban, speaking to a mutual friend, raged that Michelle had destroyed everything, and that she deserved to be gone. The defense had little room to maneuver. They claimed Esteban was emotionally unstable and lashed out in a moment of weakness, citing her pregnancy hormones, recent relationship breakdown, and lack of support. But the evidence pointed to planning, not panic. To bolster their case, prosecutors cited behavioral research from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, BJS, and NACJD, indicating that jealousy and betrayal were present in 29% of female-perpetrated homicides involving female victims. Nearly 70% of those homicides involved prior stalking behavior. Over 58% involved pre-crime digital footprints, such as search histories, texts, or location scouting, just like in Esteban's case. These patterns weren't speculation. They were documented across hundreds of criminal investigations and used to reinforce prosecutorial narratives in court. Scott Morosigan, the man at the center of this tragic triangle, took the stand with a heavy heart. He testified that Michelle had never been romantically involved with him, and that Esteban had grown increasingly hostile and paranoid in the final months. He recalled receiving threats, accusations, and even moments when he feared for his own safety.
You will be honest with me. Look at me. You will be honest with me regarding her. Otherwise, I will take your life and hers. Mom. And you can take that to the grave.
Then came the Le family. One by one, they testified to Michelle's life, her quiet determination, her dream of becoming a nurse, and the pain of her absence. Her brother's voice broke as he recounted the moment they learned her remains had been found in the hills. The courtroom sat in stillness, the cost of Esteban's actions laid bare. On October 29, 2012, after just 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom remained silent, but Esteban showed no emotion. At sentencing, the judge didn't mince words. He called the crime cold and calculated, a premeditated execution cloaked in personal bitterness and consumed by jealousy. Giselle Esteban was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Outside, the Le family addressed the press. "Justice doesn't bring her back," said Michelle's cousin, "but it gives us peace." The case sent ripples through the community and sparked new discussions in California law enforcement circles about female-on-female homicides, stalking behavior, and the overlooked threat of jealous-fueled violence, an area often under-researched, despite its recurrence. For the Le family, it was an end, but not closure. "You never stop missing her," her brother said. "You just learn to live around the hole." Michelle's death wasn't random, it wasn't senseless. It was, tragically, a textbook example of how unchecked jealousy, delusional thinking, and a refusal to let go can turn deadly. This has been Veri Crime. Thank you for watching.